the crime of the century. One of history's greatest mysteries.
All across planet Internet, self-appointed scientists are filming outrageous acts of science.
Space, time, the secrets of the cosmos lie through the wormhole.
Hello and Happy New Year. Yes, you've passed through the wormhole in this outrageous act of science project called Creative's Flow with a VO. This is Tim Dodabo, the curious voiceover, picking through the gray matter once again of creative directors and creative makers to see how they think, create, work, and play. So why the different intro music? Well, because today's guest host, aside from being a writer and producer of shows like those you just heard, is also a classically trained pianist and musician. And that's his music. And he said I could use it. So there. Jeff Stepp, today's guest host, writes and produces what we like to call non-scripted TV or TV documentaries for Discovery Channel, History Channel, and the like. And he was the guiding force behind my voice on Science Channel's show, Outrageous Acts of Science. Yes, that's my Science Channel voice. So, without any further yip-yap on my part, let's get in step with Jeff Stepp. Hey, Jeff, what's going on, man?
Hello.
How the heck are you?
I'm good.
What are you doing?
Just taking a break from work, man.
Oh, okay, good. So where is work now?
Work is in my house. I'm fully remote. We're doing a show for History Channel called History's Greatest Mysteries.
Oh,
And,
wow.
Yeah, it's pretty standard, B-roll and interview type show.
Okay, very cool.
Yeah, so producing and writing it.
I think I just did a promo for that like a year ago. History's Mysteries, but yours is called History's Greatest Mysteries.
Yeah, it's one of those shows it used to air on History Channel like back in the day, and now they're sort of rebooting it. They did 3 of them, I think, a year ago, so it's very possible that you may have done something for it. It's narrated by Lawrence Fishburne. So
Yeah. A lot of great voice people, and that are.
They couldn't get Tim Dodabo, so they had to go for B tier.
Yeah, sure. That was nice save. Nice save. Oh, where are you from originally now?
DC, Washington, DC.
You are from DC, and you moved out to LA?
Yep.
Did you go out there with Discovery?
No, I moved out here. So I went to college in St. Louis, and then graduated 2006, and then moved out here after that.
Okay. Now, when we were working together on Outrageous, were you were in DC then?
I was back in DC for like 3 years, from 2014 to 2017.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was at the Discovery mothership back then.
Yeah. And now Joy's out there too.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing sort of exploded over the last few years, and now.
Right. With them buying scripts, For those of you who don't know, Discovery Channel basically owns the planet now. They have bought Scripps Productions, which used to house DIY, HGTV, a whole host of Food Network, I think they had as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so they bought all that stuff up. Just before you guys picked me up, I was doing a show on GAC called Living Countrified.
Oh, that sounds interesting.
It's very funny because they would go to places where people don't normally go. Some of the cities were known cities, but the other stuff was stuff where people don't go, and they, like they had outhouse races and roadkill cook-offs, all kinds of crazy crap that people didn't know about in the planet.
Right. Sounds delicious.
So now, how in the world did you land in this business? I mean, did you have it in mind to get into doing non-scripted and documentary, or was there another plan for you initially?
No, I sort of fell into it. It's the first time I ever visited LA. I was 13, and my cousin was a showrunner on Just Shoot Me, which was a sitcom in the 90s.
Sure, I remember it.
So I went to visit him, in the writer's room, and he took us around on set. And as a 13-year-old, you're sort of getting the best backstage tour you can ever imagine. And so that's pretty inspiring. And so I sort of vowed from then, I was like, I want to move out to LA and do TV stuff.
Wow.
As a 13-year-old, I didn't really know much more than that. So, the years went by. I went to college. I studied film. I studied music. And then in 2006, I moved out to LA. And I didn't have a job. I didn't have anything much more than my cousin, who was that showrunner. He passed my name on to a line producer of a sitcom that was filming at the time. Said, "Hey, my cousin just moved out to LA. Good kid. Can you interview him for like a basic like office PA job?" I got the job.
Mm-hmm.
I started out like a couple days a week as an office PA. That grew. I spent, I don't know, 6-7 months on that show. Did PA gigs for probably 2 years, and eventually a friend of mine was a production manager at an unscripted company.
Cool.
At the time, was called The Incubator, and they had a show that they were doing for Discovery Channel, and they needed a production coordinator. And he knew that I had worked in production and had experience, and it's sort of a step up from entry level job when it comes to production stuff. So I said, of course, I'll take it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was unscripted stuff. I had worked prior to that on scripted stuff, but as a PA, where it sort of doesn't matter whether it's scripted or unscripted. You're just kind of doing errands,
Right. Yeah.
And then it just ballooned from there. That company took me on after the production coordinator gig. I became an associate producer because they knew I wanted to be more involved in the writing part of things. And that landed me
Okay.
on Through the Wormhole with Morgan Freeman.
Wow. What a great show.
Yeah, definitely my favorite experience of all time, my career.
Just to meet him would be a trip for me, man.
I can tell you, the first time I met him, he has an extraordinarily dry wit. And so he came to studio to shoot the stand-ups for the first season. And as the coordinator, I met his car on set, to show him in. Said, "Hi, nice to meet you. I'm Jeff." And he's like, "I don't give a fuck who you are." And I just sort of stood there like, okay, cool. Well, right this way. And he's like, "I'm just kidding."
I'm just messing with you, man. I was just kidding with you. That's not how I really am.
That was like Morgan Freeman does Matthew McConaughey, right?
Yeah, sort of, kind of. You have to whistle your asses more for Matthew.
I won't even try to do an impression because I'll just get shown up.
Me either.
Yeah, no, he was a great guy. So that's how I landed in unscripted. Just, it's like a lot of people that get jobs from people who they know. It's connections, and I just kind of went with the flow and ended up liking it.
And did you stay with it because it's just now become your passion? Or would you swing over to do something else on scripted television again, or no?
Well, scripted and unscripted are very different worlds, and they require very different skill sets, and they also require very different people to know. So,
Okay.
Having spent a lot of years in unscripted, that's the world I know. Those are the people I know, and those are the people who continue to hire me. I love writing scripted stuff and of course watching it. And, as a writer, it's something that you aspire to because it is a way to tell a story in a sort of more imaginative way than what we do in unscripted.
Mm-hmm.
But to break into that arena is almost impossible. There's no like direct link. It's like if imagine unscripted and scripted are two 100-story skyscrapers. There's no bridge in between on like level 50 or level 75. So if you're at like level 75 on the unscripted tower, you got to go all the way back down to the bottom,
Right.
go over to the bottom
Right.
of the scripted tower and work your way up. So it's not an easy thing to break into, but sure.
Yeah. Yeah, and I saw just a bit of that too. When I used to, I don't know that you know this, but I used to winter in Los Angeles because I wanted to get into that world a little more and see what it was all about. But I saw a little bit of, the back and forth of what you do as opposed to doing commercials, as opposed to the people I got to know that did on camera stuff. I mean, just being in Planet Hollywood is a very different world, and all the things you can do there. If you're in Los Angeles, there's so many more opportunities for somebody like you and somebody like I out there.
Yep.
So just so everybody understands your day to day, basically, so the audience gets a sense of what you do, what exactly do you do?
So in my current position, I'm a producer and a writer on a documentary series. So my day to day, it's varied, which is one reason why I like doing this work. So we have these sort of two titles, producer and writer. So if I am wearing my producing cap that day, that means I'm probably booking interviews, helping set up the shoots, if we have any field shoots for any of our pieces, working on locations and crew and sort of the logistical side of things.
Sure.
if I'm doing my writing side, then I'm probably writing my interview questions that I will be using for the subjects. I'm writing the script, either the script we write before we do this shoot, or the script we write based on what we've shot. Now,
Okay.
I keep saying the word script, right? We are quote unquote unscripted, right? But you still have a story to tell, and you need to know how you're going to tell it, right? So it is basically a glorified outline.
Okay.
We sort of go through the whole show, and we know who is going to speak in the program, but until we put them on camera, we don't know exactly what they're going to say. So we sort of write what are called dream bites, where you sort of make up their dialogue in your head so you can organize the flow of the story. Because otherwise, how would you know what questions to ask them? And especially on this type of show, it's a sort of theory by theory show that show has a central question. What happened here?
Right.
And then answer 1 might be this, answer 2 might be this, answer 3 might be this. So you got to find people to answer all those different things. So if you don't sort of outline it out beforehand, you may not get enough content to fill all those holes.
Much the same as what we used to do on Outrageous, where you had the experts. They were being asked questions, and then they would answer the question.
Yep.
With the theory as they understood it. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So on a show like that, you might know that you're going to get this comedian on, and so you will sort of fill in a placeholder as to what they will say, which will help tailor your question. But then on the day when you interview them, they may answer something very differently, and so that you sort of go back and write the edit script after you've shot everybody, and then sort of piece it together, and making a new product that looks similar to the one that you thought you were going to make, but as things go with humans and reality and interviews, things change.
Things change quickly.
Yeah.
Bookings happen, and people get sick, or they can't make the thing at all. Whatever.
Or they don't say what you think they're going to say.
Right. There's
happens. That. We have pre-interviews. We talk to these people, but you put someone in front of a camera, they change. They get
sure. Some
people get more nervous. Some people get more open up more. Some people are like, I don't believe that anymore, even though I told you I did. So you kind of have to adjust on the fly.
Why do you think I hide behind a microphone? Put a camera in front of me. I'm a deer in a headlight, man. Huh?
What? What's my line?
Yeah. I mean, that's honest to God why I stay behind the microphone. So, do you get to create a concept for a show, or have you been able to do that?
Yeah. So on my current job, it's not a development job, right? So I'm given a title or a topic for an episode, like for instance, the show I'm working on now, History's Greatest Mysteries, one of my topics is what happened at the Amityville Horror House. So there was a haunting in the there was a series of murders in the 70s in this house in Amityville, New York. A couple and their family moved in a year later and claimed that they were being haunted. So this episode is about what happened.
Read the book, scared the crap out of me.
Yeah,
I know exactly what you're talking about.
It was a book. Yeah. Was it a hoax? Was it real? What happened? Yada, yada, yada. So I didn't come up with that. I mean, I researched the theories and the experts and came up with a story to tell. But, I was basically given the concept from the front. Now, I have worked at jobs in development where I am coming up with original material, and whether it's sometimes networks will give you an ask, like, we want to show, like, what's the next American Pickers?
Wow.
Come up with something like that for us. Or you might just come up with something organic. I read this really fascinating memoir. Like, can we turn this into a documentary series about this person's life?
Mm-hmm.
So there's all sorts of material that I have come up with. Yeah.
Awesome. I didn't know that because, when you and I worked together, that was what do they call it? A repackaging?
Reversions. Yeah.
A reversion. Yeah. There you go. I mean, because, they probably said, here, take this and make it American. It's a British show now, make it American.
Exactly.
So I wasn't sure that that's very cool, Jeff. I didn't know that you actually wrote the shows. And I know that you and I were working on a super secret project we can't talk about. So, and we won't talk about.
But it's similar to that in terms of development. That's an original idea.
Right. It's very cool, though. It's very cool. And I'm always in awe of what you guys do because, I get the words and I have to breathe some life into them. And actually, I don't know when you got Lawrence Fishburne, but I think I auditioned for that show.
Yeah, I don't know when that decision was made. It was not my decision. I would have hired you in a heartbeat.
It is what it is, bud. You know what? I got to tell you, man, and I'll tell you, audience, as well. You either got the job or you didn't, because
Yep.
the minute you listened, or whoever was in charge of booking listened, they said, that's the guy. Or they had it in mind to pick a star all along.
Yep.
So let's throw all these pieces of sketty at the wall and see what sticks. And you put everybody's voice up to the picture and you're like, yep, that's the one that's working for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and of course, someone, it's not fair. You're not competing on an even playing field, right? Because someone like Fishburne has a lot of name recognition.
Of course. Yes, he does.
He has a great voice. There's no denying that. But, he's primarily on the show to be in the title, so that he brings eyeballs.
Right, right.
It's got to be tough. You must record demos all day and wondering, like, where are those things that I...
Well, I mean, demos, yeah. At least if it's truly a demo, guys, and you're union, you're going to get paid for it. What happens, what can and does happen is that you'll audition for something and it will be a demo you never hear about. And lucky spin is that you might get booked for the job, or in my case, which is a spot that's running right now, they lifted my voice from my audition because my studio is rock solid, and they put it right in the spot. It's airing right now. So that's another thing. So do you ever get any inspiration from downtime or hobbies? Is there sometimes when you might be out on a walk and you're like, oh, this would kind of make a good show, or something, a light switch flips on inside you to say, I think this could get some legs.
I do think of a lot of ideas in my downtime. A lot of it, I like to go hiking and into nature, and I'm very much into astronomy and the cosmos, and
cool,
looking up. So I tend to think about a lot of the questions we tackled on Through the Wormhole. Honestly, why are we here? What happened before the Big Bang? Is time travel possible and real? What are wormholes? All that stuff. Is fascinating to think about.
It's such a great. Is it? I'm sorry. I know. I'll let you continue on. Is it going to be back on?
No. I think it
was such a great show. I never missed it, and I'm sorry I never caught your name on it.
Oh, it's all good. All good.
It's So anyway, go
on. Yes, I do get inspiration. I think when it comes to developing show ideas for TV and for streaming, a lot of the landscape is not conducive to that kind of content. Science content, especially sort of intelligent science content, for lack of a better phrase, has a fairly limited audience, and limited places. Although it's with the number of streamers, it is growing a bit. It used to be, if you're doing science stuff, it's either on Science Channel or Discovery, sort of way back in the day. But now with places like Netflix and Apple and Paramount, I think there's a little more of an appetite. Like, for example, Fox, they have their show Cosmos, which is the
I know,
sort of
I've seen it,
reboot of this Carl Sagan show. Which is fine, but I have issues with it, but it does bring science into the cultural arena. Sort of the general public. It helps raise awareness of those type of shows, and maybe people will watch more of them. So, in terms of, back to your original question, if I'm developing stuff that's not science, it usually is just a lot of reading. So what am I interested in?
Right.
What sort of nonfiction books and articles, and what sort of crazy things are happening in our world that make you want to say, I'd like to tell that story. And then you realize that 50 other production companies also want to tell that same story, and so you have to figure out
a spin. You have to give it your own spin.
Yeah,
or a cool spin.
What's your take on it? And trying to guess. A lot of it is kind of throwing darts at a dartboard in terms of what a streamer or production company or network wants. That's the one thing I've learned in this industry, is that the network has no idea what they want until they see it. They will tell you, we want a show in black and white, featuring, only puppets, right? So you give them a show that's puppets in black and white, and they say, you know what? We actually want a show in color with live animals. And so you're like, but you told us black and white and puppets. And they're like, well, too bad. We're the network. Take it. Or,
Can you make a Morgan Freeman puppet?
So exactly. They don't know what they want until they see it. And so it doesn't do you a lot of good if you're creating something to really spend a ton of time trying to figure out, like, is this the right font that the network's going to like, or is this the right format? Make it good, and then make it something that you can ultimately defend. Because I have been in the position where, I'm taking pitches. For a while, I was VP of development at Original Productions. And so we've got a lot of people pitching us ideas. And, some people come in with an idea and they're like, oh yeah, no, we'll totally make it what you guys want. Like, oh, you want this, you don't like this, great, tell us. Like, those are not good pitches. You should come in with an idea that you believe in. And if I say, well, I don't like this part of your pitch, then you should say, well, here's why we like it. Sell me on it, right? There is a balance, right? You're not coming in saying it's either my way or the highway. But if you're wishy-washy about it and you're trying to sort of think too much about what the other person wants, you're going to forget about what you want.
Right.
And so you need to learn to tell the story your own way.
And it gets lost in the translation too. Part of the job as we on camera and or voice actors is to bring your creation to life. So there are times when, as an actor, I'll say, "Hey, are we good? Yeah, you got what you want. You're happy. Okay? So you could basically broadcast what we've done. Yes, that's great. That's exactly what we're looking for. Okay, great. Because I got a squirrel running around in my head now too. Do you mind if I do that? So just like you do have to speak up for yourself. And I suppose maybe that comes with some experience and some confidence in your craft.
Mm-hmm.
So both you and I have that same situation where, then I'll present this and 90% of the time they'll say, we're good with what we have. But there's that 10% time where they'll say, yeah, this is great, man. Let's explore that a little more. So
that's the best part of this process for me is, I am not a seasoned actor, voice or otherwise. And it's very, I can imagine sort of an idea of what I want to sound like, but the best part of the experience for me working with people like yourself is getting in the booth and seeing what you can do, because you're the professional. You're the one, who I'm always blown away, by the different styles and takes and possibilities. And like you said, I thought it was going to be this, but this other direction is way more interesting.
Sure.
Because I can only know what I know, right? And
mm-hmm.
the mark of a good creative process is when people trust each other enough to understand each person has expertise in their own kind of little silos.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to trust you to give me the performance you think is the right one. And you have to trust me to sort of evaluate that performance for my project, right?
Yes.
So
yes.
Hopefully you find a happy medium ground.
And we have to give you what you need. We have to give you what you want and what you need. I like to always say that I don't have any ego invested in it. If after I ask you that question, you say, nope, we're good. You don't need to do anything else. That was great, but we're going to keep what you did before. I don't have any ego invested. You're willing to take a little bit of a risk. And I know on your side of the glass, it's a lot bigger risk.
Mm-hmm.
When you say, hey, we really want to do this show, so it's a bigger risk to try and sell that, I think as actors and whatever your medium, the first thing we have to do is walk in with what I call empathy, because actors want to go in there and they have no idea all the stuff you had to go through to get from the point you were like this with your pen to the point where you had to make it real, present it, sell it, change it. Hey, you can't say that. Okay, change, to where we're in the booth or in front of the camera.
Mm-hmm.
So, did you ever try to sell an astrological? Did you say you're into astronomy or astrology?
Astronomy.
Okay, sorry.
Only thing I know about astrology is I'm a Taurus, but as far as that goes.
Aries, strong Aries. Is there something new aside from the show with the History's Mysteries that you're working on that, if it's not verboten to talk about, obviously, that you can tell us about? Is there something in the works?
There's always ideas floating around in my head, We can talk about the show that you and I, or the demo that you and I are working on. There is a show that I recruited you to voice a sizzle for, which is astronomical in nature. It's all about,
Okay.
imagining what it would be like to visit distant planets and moons, galaxies, as if they were already popular tourist attractions.
Mm-hmm.
So what is it like to have an amusement park in 0G?
Mm-hmm.
What would it like, what kind of food would you eat in TRAPPIST-1, in the sort of system that's, tantalizingly out of reach, but seems to potentially harbor life.
Yeah, I hope it gets legs, dude. And as to what people would be eating, probably each other.
Yeah. If they're even people, we don't know. Guess meat's back on the menu, boys.
Yeah, right. There you go. There's no meat here. I'm sorry, Bob. You got to go.
Yeah.
So, are the rumors true about unscripted TV that it's actually quite scripted? A lot of scripted TV is quite scripted.
Yeah, I mean, scripted is maybe the wrong word, but heavily produced is for sure. A show, especially a show that's very popular, like The Kardashians or Selling Sunset, or none of these things happen organically. This is not a window into these people's lives. Like we're some sort of peeping Tom.
It's very
right?
scripted.
They're not given. Here's the lines you're going to read, right? They probably couldn't memorize them. But it is like, okay, today we're going to this restaurant and you're pissed off at Gina because she did X, Y, and Z. Go fight about it, right? And it's even shows like that seem ostensibly real, like House Hunters or things like that. Everything has been carefully produced and curated beforehand so that you know exactly what is going to happen as it happens. There's no real mystery, even though we like to try to sell you on that. It doesn't mean the shows aren't entertaining, right? But House Hunters, they've already bought the house, so everything you see.
I was just going to mention that show.
It right.
Sorry to be a spoiler alert for you people that love House Hunters like I do, but they already live in a house.
That's why you get these sort of outrageous, like, our budget is $10, but we want an infinity pool. The real estate agent is like, right.
We want to do the entire first floor,
right.
But we only have $300. We want to live on the ocean for $250 in Los Angeles.
Right. But it's for me, the way I sort of resolve it to myself is that we're trying to make, at the end of the day, it is entertainment, right?
Yeah.
And the something like Pawn Stars is pseudo informational, right? It's kind of it's like a Antiques Roadshow on steroids. None of all those things are produced beforehand. Rick doesn't know any of these experts that he says he's friends with. They're produced and brought in.
Okay.
But it is an interesting way to convey information to an audience. Like, here's the value of something.
Mm-hmm.
Here's some more interesting history about it. So it's packaging good stuff. It's just putting it. It's like putting medicine in cheese and giving it to a dog. You're still getting the medicine.
Right. Absolutely. American Pickers. Another one I love.
All that stuff. There are no surprises what they are uncovering. It's not like, oh my God, under this junk we found this incredibly rare object that we totally didn't know was here and totally didn't put there. Or Storage Wars.
Here's Tutankhamun's actual sarcophagus.
Right. It just happened to be in this West Virginia shack. Like, who knew?
Yeah, my granddad, he brought that here from Egypt.
Right. But at the end of the day, you are learning something interesting about those objects. So
absolutely,
there's a value to
and
it.
they're fun. They're a lot of fun. They're so much fun, and I loved riffing off what the scientists were saying on Outrageous.
Mm-hmm.
The longer the leash you guys started giving me, the longer I would take it. And once I started working with London, I would rewrite a line. I'd read what they said, and that's good. Okay, here's Timmy's line. And they'd say, okay, take two. And then I'd give them a line, and I'd say at least half the time they kept my line. So now we're going to move on over to working with us goofy actors. I would say, I was going to ask you another question about who the coolest people you ever worked with, but it sounds like you pretty much told me. Besides Morgan, who I just adore, and Mr. Fishburne, is there somebody that was really cool to work with?
Well, I've somehow developed this track record of working on shows that have these sort of octogenarian A-listers on them. So, I did Through the Wormhole with Morgan Freeman. I'm currently doing History's Greatest Mysteries with Lawrence Fishburne. And in between, I did The Unexplained with William Shatner.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. What a great show.
they're very similar in format,
Mm-hmm.
right? Mostly interviewees plus archive.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went to lunch with William Shatner
Oh my
and a
God,
bunch of
dude.
producers, and it was actually a pretty crazy story. So we showed up. So the head of the company that was making the show took us out to lunch. Me and 3 other producers, and then Shatner was there with his assistant, and we had the head of the company there. And Shatner's there when we arrive. It is a sushi place in Studio City, and as we're about to sit down, as we're like shaking hands, he takes this drink of green tea, and essentially all of it goes down his windpipe. And
Ooh, choked his brains out.
talk about like a hot liquid suddenly inhaling. So he turns bright red. I mean, he's coughing for at least a minute. I'm not even exaggerating. This is within like 30 seconds of meeting the man, right? And I'm just standing there like, am I going to watch like William Shatner expire in front of me in the most ridiculous way possible, just as I meet him? But everything was resolved. He calmed,
What have you done to William Shatner? I can hear the people in the
I know.
restaurant.
Yeah. So thankfully, everything was fine, and he was a treasure, as you might expect. And
Oh, I'm
I
sure.
don't know if you saw any of his speech and stuff after his flight with Blue Origin.
I watched the whole thing. He was in tears.
Yeah, I mean, he is incredibly genuine and passionate person to work with. I didn't work with him closely, because he is who he is, and he's only involved with our show for a few days. But the times I did work with him or talk to people who did work with him, it's only good things. And he was
Right.
very generous in helping us get access to certain things we needed for that show in terms of locations and people to film with. So nothing but great things to say about him. But yeah, so Lawrence, Morgan, and William, for some reason, I'll pepper my resume. I guess that's the only shows I'm allowed to make now. Is
Absolutely, dude. Absolutely.
he's a treasure.
So tell the audience, please, how voice work is different in this medium over other things like, say, commercials, or obviously promo can be semi-similar, but the pacing is obviously different, and you ping different words, right?
Yeah, something shorter form like a promo, for example. Obviously, the energy is going to be a lot higher. You're trying to get someone's attention and keep it for 15 or 30 seconds. In a documentary series, a narrated series, it depends on the tone of the show, but you're often there just to kind of stitch the elements of the show together. For example, on the show I'm working on now, Fishburne is not here as a sort of all-knowing voice of God narrator to tell you the story. He's there to help link the experts' interviews together, help move the story forward.
Mm-hmm.
So you almost in long form, it's not that the voiceover needs to be out of the way, but it shouldn't be distracting from the material on screen, right? It needs to sort of mesh. So if it's a nature documentary, you're going to have a bit more refined and subtle energy, than if you're doing like a 30-second promo for Monday Night Football, right?
Mm-hmm.
That said, there is a lot of room for variation in long form because you do have just a lot more words to say. So you're not just trying to hit somebody in the face with their words. You can sort of craft a phrase.
Sure.
I actually really enjoy doing the long form stuff with voice actors because you get to hear people kind of think on screen. People say like Tom Hanks is an actor you can watch think on screen.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's so deep into it, and I think a good voice actor, you
Mm-hmm.
can feel them sort of internalizing the line, and it comes out in a way that is so much more interesting than I could have ever thought about it. But it's definitely a sort of genre-based style. One style that works for History Channel may not work for Discovery, may not work for Netflix. So you have to have a lot of different arrows in your quiver.
Absolutely. And I think some of those arrows, at least for me, is there's the pensive. There's the one where you kind of just sit in the story. I like to liken it to a museum curator walking you through the museum.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not the story, you're explaining the story. And then there's something where you're a little more forward.
Mm-hmm.
A little more bold, a little more brash, a little bit more silly even sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
There's somebody right now doing a narration for a TV show, and they're on it's the same show, but on some of the shows, they're perfect for it. And on some of the other ones, I'm like, I don't know. I would have gone a little more serious on this particular show. It's the same show, but there's some that are a little bit more serious or just a little more traumatic-ish, but they're always big and over the top. Even on stuff that just doesn't work for that show. With Outrageous, they would say, hey, let's do this one a little bit more dramatic because this is kind of a serious subject. So I'd pull it way back and get closer to the mic and just kind of talk about it. I guess you said it the best. You really, as a narrator for TV and TV documentary, non-scripted and TV documentary, you do have to have a lot of arrows in your quiver. So.
Yeah, it's sort of frightening. I'm glad I'm not a voice actor because the amount of variety that because there's so many different types of work, but there are also so many different people wanting to do it, that how you find a way to stand out
right
and be that voice amongst 20 or 30 other voices. I don't know how you do it, to be honest.
It becomes your gift. And maybe it started out as a silly little thing you did as a kid, or it started out as a hobby, but it's a craft you have to work at like anything else, you have to work the craft, and you have to, I've said before that it's like a wide lapelled suit in your closet. It's not in style right now, but doggone it, in a couple of years, drag that sucker out because it's going to be right back in style. And it's the same thing with acting and voiceovering, Do you basically listen to all your own auditions, or is there a production person that does that and you just guide them? I know you produce too, so do you book the talent, and what are you listening for when you go through auditions?
It depends on the show I'm working on. Show like the one I have now, sort of narrator set in stone. I don't even actually go to the recording sessions. Our executive producer will be the one.
Ah, okay.
I did go when I was working on Through the Wormhole. I did go to the recording studio when we did Morgan Freeman's voiceover, and that was like one of the sort of holy shit, I've made it.
Yes, sir.
Or sort of made it moments, because I have a 40-page script that I've written that Morgan Freeman's about to read to me, and that's sort of like a writer's wet dream. Then you're also extremely nervous because I'm like, well, what am I going to tell Morgan Freeman what to do? Like, oh, that wasn't quite right, and what's he going to be like? No, this is it. Okay.
This is what you get with me, son. Yeah, right.
So that was very exciting experience, but also very sort of humbling, because with someone of that caliber, you just kind of let them do their thing, and what you get is what you get, and it's going to be infinitely better than if I try to direct him. But in other things, when it's less that sort of top tier, you really you're looking for what affects you emotionally.
Sure.
It's hard to say. I certainly don't have enough experience to say here are the 3 tips as a voice actor that you should try to do when in the audition. I think for me, it's clear when someone connects with the material and understands the words they're saying. There's a difference between read.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a voice actor, you can probably read, right? That doesn't mean you necessarily can speak as if you've understood it. So your point about empathy, I think, was good earlier. Is that it's not just about what you say, but how you say it, and the only way you're going to know how to say it is if you understand it. And so I really like actors who ask questions and say, what do you mean?
Mm-hmm. Like you said, connecting with it.
Yeah, exactly. I did some stuff with Mike when I was at Science Channel. Again, another one of these people that just has a natural gift.
That's Mike Rowe, by the way, who also has a brilliant show on Discovery. I listened to his podcast. I never missed any of his shows. I could listen to the man read the phone book.
Yeah, some people just, it's like they were born to do that, and then that's him. The guy you see on screen is the same guy that you're going to get.
Yeah, and I can tell that. And just so you guys know, I just showed Jeff something. Mike Rowe, hello, Mike Rowe, if you're listening, if you ever listen. It's what, not how. It's the what, not how. What you think is not important as to how you react. And it's the same thing with reading. What you're saying, not how you're saying it.
Yeah, I mean, it's if you're doing a show about space or something like that,
mm-hmm.
You can tell when someone
loves space.
Or just, it's not like you have to love everything you read, but has made an effort to try to understand it,
mm-hmm.
right? And put it in a way and understand it on terms that make sense for them.
Right.
Like I was saying earlier, I like when actors in voice auditions ask me questions. Now, I know that's not always possible. Sometimes it's blind. You just get a script, say, hey, read this and send it back to me.
Which is 99% of the time now, dude.
Right. But if you ever do get in the mix or in a live audition, for me, it's not a sign of weakness to say, like, what did you mean by this? Did you mean it? Was this something to be funny? Was this something more serious? How does this relate to the topic at hand? Some producers may not want to hear that, and they just want just do your job and read so they can go back and swim in their pool.
Sure.
But for me, if someone is making the effort to ask questions, that means they're trying to understand it, which means they're going to do a better job.
Right. Absolutely. And I can certainly hear when people connect. I know when I connect with something and when I'm like, you're not in this, dude. Walk away for a bit,
Yeah.
Sometimes it just takes walking away from something. If I've got a full day and I'm just not getting it, because a lot of auditions now, although they say, we don't need this for 2 days, if you're the first one in line and they hear your voice and they like you, they're not even going to listen to anybody else.
Right.
But if I'm not connecting, I don't want to waste your time either, So I'd rather connect with it. And I'm sure that's why I booked every narration job I've ever gotten, because I read the script and said, this is friggin' awesome, and I was in it. I was in it to be part of it, be part of the team,
Yeah.
Is there a way that actors, do you only go through talent agents, or do actors like myself, the pest that I am, reach out to you in other ways?
I'm not often in the position where I'm making that direct choice about who is going to do the voiceover. When I am, it's, they're like, here's the 20 guys that do a version of Michael Buffer, and you're sort of like, okay, like, after you listen to it, starts to all sort of blend together, so
Right.
So for me, once I've worked with someone, I like to continue working with those people. Like we did some reversions at Science Channel where we had a couple different voice actors like yourself, and I would just I would bring people onto projects even if they weren't maybe the traditional choice, because I knew them. And in a creative relationship, trust is so key, and having that quick sort of shorthand that you can have with someone you've worked with before, where you don't have to spend 10 minutes getting to know each other or realizing, is this a sarcastic person? Is this a not sarcastic person? Is he going to be mad if I give him a note this way? Is he not going to be mad? Like, you sort of all that, you've dispensed with all that. So you can very quickly dial into the material, because a professional voice actor is going to have the range, is going to have the experience to do a lot of different things. So as long as they're in the general wheelhouse, I think it's easier to work with someone you've worked with before, which is not great advice for someone who's never worked with anyone, because then,
We have to be malleable too. We have to be able to pivot very quickly, but also sometimes just, slightly. Oftentimes when we're given a direction, we're really close, or we wouldn't have gotten the job. It's just a subtle change, a subtle shift, either in attitude, pitch, volume, pacing, that it's finally like, yes, that's it. Now you got it. Stay there. And my best advice to other actors that do voiceover is record your stuff. Even if you're broadcasting via Source Connect or whatever you're using, or ISDN, record your stuff so that if it's a multiple gig, if it's Cars, or if it's a show for Discovery Channel, you remember where you were in your headspace and your heart space, and pacing, your voice, everything, because it can be a subtle shift that gets you either in or out of it.
it also is helpful to listen. Obviously, I'm not a voice actor, but as someone who's a musician, you're crafting something that's making a sound, and you often don't know what you sound like until you listen to yourself back, right? You sound very different in your head and very different in the microphone, in the headset, as you're talking, than you do, compressed and squished and
right
on broadcast.
Yeah.
So speaking to your, record yourself. That's a great way to get better,
Right.
About doing anything, any sort of it could be. That's why baseball players, pitchers, and record themselves throwing over and over, because
Muscle memory, man.
Exactly.
I did not know this about you, Jeff Stepp. I didn't know you were a musician.
Yes.
What do
Like
you
piano and bass. I write for everything.
play? Style?
Classically trained pianist. I enjoy playing.
Such a gift, bud. When I watch people like that, I'm just like, oh my God, what a gift. I'm a singer. I don't know if you know that about me.
No.
But yes, I was in a rock band from the time I was 13 till I was 33.
So last year.
Then I got out and I just went full bore forward as a voice actor. I did nothing else. Then about in my late 30s, I picked it up again. And then I left it alone till just a few years ago. Now I'm kind of back in another band called the 70s FM Radio.
I'm gonna get the band back together.
It's really cool. And I'm in the 70s FM band, and there's 2 girls or 3 girls, depending who can make it, and 2 or 3 guys that sing. And we just step back and forth. You know, I'll do the Zeppelin and the ZZ Top and the Who and stuff like that. And, you know,
Right.
and then there's the other ones that do Linda Ronstadt or Fleetwood Mac, stuff
Cool.
like that.
Uh-huh. The Zeppelin, yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, I didn't know that.
Yeah, there you go.
Not surprised.
I'll send you my Baba O'Reilly. He actually posted me singing Baba
Oh, wow.
O'Reilly. We needed you for the
The
violin.
most. You don't want me playing the violin.
All right. So I have one more question, and then it is lightning round questions. I did not send those to you on purpose.
Yep.
So our final question of the day is there a piece of advice you'd like to give our listeners, be they someone who does what you do and or aspiring actors?
Ooh.
Any creative
I know.
person that
All
might
right.
be listening. I know it's a broad question, so answer whichever side you want to answer, and something you wish somebody would have told you when you were starting out.
One piece of advice. Don't go to a hotel room with Harvey Weinstein.
I can hear that.
It's the sort of piece of advice that I've lived with for a long time and has helped me a lot. It's going to sound very generic, but it's be confident. And that doesn't mean you're always right. That doesn't mean you know everything. I've learned that sort of the hard way over my life, but it's very important to believe in what you're saying and what you're doing, because that will come through in the work you're creating.
Mhm.
If it's whether it's pitching an idea for a TV show, whether it's writing, whether it's doing an audition, if you're unsure of yourself, only the best actor in the world could fake their way around that, right? For most of us, you have to be confident in what you're selling and be okay with defending that. You need to read the room and recognize, like, say I was giving direct voice direction to Morgan Freeman. I'm not going to go in there and dictate what he does. That's just not the reality situation. But people like that will respect you if you at least can sort of confidently defend your idea.
Right.
You can still be open to change and change your mind, but if the worst thing you can be is wishy-washy, have a position and take a stand. If there's a way you want to do, like you're saying, voiceover demo, often you'll ask, like, can I do one the way I'm hearing it in my head? Right? It's not necessarily you're forcing that idea on them, but you are confident enough to ask for it and then to go for it. And sometimes it'll work.
And then be confident enough, be egoless enough to say, okay, they didn't like my idea, or they didn't even want to hear my idea, and be okay with that.
Right. We have to very quickly divorce ourselves from our ideas.
Right.
And because their ideas are like food. Some people like certain things, some people don't like other things. One person may like coffee, one person may not like coffee. That's not to say coffee is bad or good.
Right. Really well said.
It's just taste, right? And it's the same way with entertainment or anything in creative, right? They may like your performance, they may not like your performance. It doesn't necessarily mean it was bad or good.
Mm-hmm.
And it certainly doesn't mean you as a person are good or bad, right? And that is maybe the bigger lesson for actors, is that you have to divorce yourself from your performance. And if you keep getting no at an audition, it doesn't mean that you're a bad person or you're not valuable or not worthy or not good, right?
Sure.
It's hard to do that. It's hard to separate because we naturally internalize things, but you have to just kind of remember that it's like food. Honestly, some people are going to like your cooking, some people aren't, and the people that do
are going to rave about it.
Yep.
Yep. We can't personalize it. In the end, it's really not about you. It's about giving the client, the end client, and it's about giving the audience what they want. Hearing no is, if the hardest thing, especially for a lot of actors, hearing no is not personal. You just weren't the right one this time. And I know that on your
Right.
side of the glass, it's the same thing. You pitch an idea, they're like, you know what? Not now, but maybe later, because there's too much stuff going on right now. The answer might be because there's too much stuff going out right now that's just like your idea. but it's so
Yep.
good and so different that once this show's off the air, I think we can revisit this. Or once it starts to wane, let's revisit your idea because I think it could be something. You know?
What you said reminded me of my confidence quote, which I would add to, which is be confident and have a personality, right? You think of someone like Chris Farley, right? That guy, you meet him on the street, you might think he's a psychopath, right?
Yeah.
But he's an incredible comedic actor for this type of stuff he did, right? And so if he went to an audition and auditioned as someone else, he probably, because that's what he thought they wanted to see, he's not going to get it. You know, have your personality and your audience will find you. Right? So be confident and know who you are and focus on that, right? I know you mentioned, Tim, about giving the client what they want. And that's true, but you have to do that within the bounds of your strengths.
Really well said, dude.
Right?
Really well
Yeah.
said. When I say that, I'm saying, you know, when you don't get the job, or when a producer or a creative director tries to guide you in a new way, don't say, well, this is who I am, man. This is my personality. I'm not moving for you. I mean, all you're trying to say is, but this is kind of where we're trying to go. And you're close, but you're not quite there. Or what they're really trying to say is, dude, you're a million miles from where we were trying to go with this. So as an actor, you have to push down your personality and say, how can I serve you? That's really all I mean by that. Let me serve you. You know, we're not always going to be perfect for the job. So, you know, but my job is to say, how can I serve you? And you're right. I can't help but bring some of my personality to my show. I am where I'm from. I'm who I am. I'm the product of my environment. But, you know, because I'm such a chameleon, even for straight and out stuff, I might bend it just a little bit, you know, to give it a little something that makes you prick your ears up and say, yeah, we could go in that direction. Even though it's a show for Science Channel, let's have a little friggin' fun with this. Are you ready for the lightning round questions, sir?
As ready as I'm going to be.
If you weren't doing this, Jeff Stepp, what would you be doing? I think I know now.
No, you would be wrong. I would be a doctor.
A doctor of
Medicine. I don't know if I ever had the wherewithal to do things like organic chemistry and all the heavy sciences that you have to have in order to be pre-med and that sort of thing. I was always very much a liberal arts kind of person, but I love medicine. I love medicine shows. I love watching videos of surgery. You know, like my sister was an ER nurse for 12 years, and I loved all the sort of weird, crazy, gross stories that she would have. I'm very interested in the human body and how it functions. So if I had unlimited time and money and talent, I would go back and maybe become a doctor.
That's really cool. And everybody's been surprising me with this. Honest to God. So yeah, a doctor. I figured for sure you'd be saying a concert pianist, but you're right. I was wrong. So where do you see your genre, that being documentary and non-scripted television, where do you see it in 5 years from now? What is it? What do you think it's going to look like?
That's tough. You know, I remember when the first reality shows came out, like we're talking like MTV Real World and stuff, like back in the day. And then when that sort of format became popular, I thought, this is never going to last more than 5 or 10 years. You know, like eventually people are going to just be sick of watching idiots run around getting drunk and whatever. But Real World Road Rules Challenge it's on like season 500. You know, it's like it's an endless font of entertainment for people. And so
yeah,
I think as much as I may not watch the shows, I think it bodes well just for the genre in general that we're not really going anywhere. You know, I think the same formats that used to be popular are basically still popular. What has happened in the sort of quote unquote premium space is, you know, these shows like Gold Rush and Deadliest Catch, they once were straight up observational documentary series. 5 guys go into mine gold, let's throw some cameras up there and see what we get, right? Because scripted TV has become so prominent, you know, every streamer has to have a huge kind of scripted type show, that kind of storytelling is expected now from us in unscripted. And so you need characters, you need character development, you need plot arcs, you need ups and downs and 3-act structures. And, so
Sure.
I think things are going to continue to be more produced. There's seems to be less and less window for straight up just kind of put some cameras up and
let it happen, spontaneity.
Yeah, exactly. Like the first couple seasons of Deadliest Catch, they literally just rigged crab boats with some cameras and we're like, let's just see what happens. The drama was enough.
That was real drama. There was no what did Mike Rowe say? If you've never listened to him, he said you can't script the Bering Sea.
Bering Sea, yeah. So I think our genre will be around. I think a lot of it depends on what happens to linear cable, because there's the shows that I'm making for History Channel are different than the shows that I would be making for something like Netflix or Apple TV. And I think, that cable audience is dwindling and dwindling. But what that means is that the networks that do survive on that platform are doubling down on that kind of content. So, if someone is, say like Bravo or something is getting an audience with their, Real Housewives, Real Houseboat people,
My
like
500-pound life on TLC and stuff like that.
You're going to continue to see more of it. And people are like, well, why, they make the same show over and over again. And because that's what keeps their eyeballs on the network, and that's their paid for ads. So the more people that watch them, the more money they make. So
that's right.
As the linear cable industry declines, you may see less and less of that kind of programming, but the audience is not going to go away. So it'll probably, Netflix for a long time, their sort of mandate was like, let's find all the popular shows on cable and just make our own versions. Right? So they have all these competition glass blowing shows and competition cooking shows like Top Chef, but it's not Top Chef, it's Netflix's version. So that sort of content, I think, is here to stay.
Sure. Yeah, I'm seeing stuff like that on Hulu now, Netflix. There's a young couple guys that are doing a show up in Canada. They're a cross between the Boise Boys and, they're called Outgrown, and definitely Property Brothers. They're tearing a page right out of the Property Brothers playbook. So, but it's on Netflix or it's on Hulu or something like that. It's just, so yeah, I think that's going to happen more and more.
Yep.
And the infused drama of those shows is kind of interesting to me. Rather than just like you said, letting stuff happen organically, and maybe it just wouldn't be interesting enough to watch people swing hammers all day long building a house. But the infused drama, getting back to Deadliest Catch, that's, stuff's happening all the time. And Gold Rush too.
I mean, Gold Rush is now basically a scripted show.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
It didn't start out that way, though.
Same thing no, it doesn't. Like A Curse of Oak Island is another great example of a show where nothing ever happens, but, they are hugely popular because of how they tell the story.
All right. And then our last question before I say thank you is, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
This is always like the worst job interview question.
And don't say doctor. I know you're really smart, but being a doctor in the next 5 years.
Well, you never know. Next 5 years, I'd like to be running my own show, whether it's something I've sold or something that someone has hired me to produce.
Well, I have to say, here's to that, mister. Wait. Here's to that, mister. Now I can hold up this. My Halo mug. See?
I see it. Did you do Halo?
Yeah. Did you play Halo?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, you didn't know you're working with 343 Guilty Spark, did you, Reclaimer?
Oh, I think I might have known that from you about you at one point, but I forgot about that. Holy shit.
Master Chief and I have signed a few things for charities. He used to live the next city over. His wife was a dear friend of mine before they got married.
Oh, yeah. That's cool.
Yes. But again, man, thank you so much. And to you and your family and everybody out there listening, happy 2022. Let's all hope that in this year we'll be walking around mask-free. And the only injections we'll need from here on out are one of funk.
Thanks, Tim.
Dr. Stepp?
Yeah, that's right.
You're always a trip, dude. You're always a trip. And you're always smiling. I love that. All right, Jeffrey, you take care. Peace.
Cool, Tim. I'll talk to you later.
Well, everyone, that was Jeff Stepp. And if you didn't know anything about documentary TV, you sure do now. On our next show, we'll be hearing from a young copywriter from the Leo Burnett Advertising Agency, Jake Dunnington, with his views on where advertising is, where he gets his creative juice from, and where it's going in the future. On the next, Creatives Flow with a VO. Till then, as always, find your flow. Bye-bye.